welcome to the January 24th, 2017 school committee meeting. We're happy to have you join us. Tonight's meeting is being recorded by Easthampton Media. Easthampton Media channels 191, 192, and 193 is looking for volunteers. If anyone is interested in helping to tape city government meetings, please contact Kathy Lynch at 413-203-1360. And we'd like to thank Tim Riley for taping tonight's meeting for us. Superintendent Follensby, do you have some announcements for us?
I do have a few announcements. The next regular school committee meetings are February 28th, March 14th, April 11th, and 25th, May 9th and 23rd, June 13th and 27th, 2017. There is a kindergarten information night for families of students who will enter kindergarten in the fall. Stop there for a minute. The event is on February 8th from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock at Easthampton High School. There's no school on Friday, January 27th, due to teacher professional development and semester change. There's no school February 20th to 24th due to winter break. There's a half day of school Friday, March 3rd due to teacher professional development. There are half days of school on Thursday and Friday, March 16th and 17th due to parent-teacher conferences.
Thank you very much. Do we have any correspondence?
I don't believe so. Did I miss something?
And I don't believe we have any gifts to report
No,
either.
neither.
Okay, so we'll move on to the public speak portion of our meeting. And I'm assuming, looking out here, that there isn't anyone here to speak to us from the public. But this is the time in our meeting where we invite people to do so if they have anything they'd like to talk to us about. But we'll move on at this point to our subcommittee reports. And I don't believe the Finance Subcommittee has met recently. And I'm assuming the same for the Policy Review
Correct.
Subcommittee. Okay. So I know Finance Subcommittee will be meeting soon, quite a bit, as we start the budget process. Okay, moving on to the Collaborative for Educational Services update.
We will be meeting tomorrow night at 6:30 in Greenfield.
Okay, very good. And we do not have a student activities update this evening due to the weather conditions. So we will be moving on to a brief update on education policy that Marissa is going to provide for us, an education policy update.
Great. So for tonight, I just wanted to raise a little awareness about the nomination of Betsy DeVos to the Secretary of Education. Her nomination is under consideration right now. The vote is set for the 31st. And it's possible to go online and see her nomination hearings. She has some expressed views that are concerning for people who are advocates of public education. She herself has no experience with public education. She hasn't worked in public schools. Her children haven't attended. She hasn't attended. And she seems to have some basic misunderstandings about how public education operates. For example, one of the things that I found particularly concerning was she thought that schools shouldn't necessarily be responsible for or accountable to IDEA, which is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, which protects all students with disabilities and affords them the right to a public education that meets their individual needs. I think that it's really important that the Secretary of Education understands the policies that guide public schools and looks out for the interests of all students here in the U.S. So I would encourage people to look up Betsy DeVos and find out what she's all about and talk to your senators and representatives.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to the superintendent's report.
The first item is the school calendar. However, I received a message when the packet, just after the packet had gone out, that from the union president that he would like to have more time for his staff to look at the calendar before you as school committee members look at it to approve it. So it will be ready for the next school committee meeting.
Just, can I ask a question about that? As a matter of procedure, I'm confused as to why we couldn't be looking at it concurrently with the union leadership looking at it.
I believe the policy that has been in place, or procedures, is that the leadership team looks at it, then we give it to the union to give their comments back to the leadership team. And we take those comments into consideration, make revisions that we believe we can make, if there are any, and then put it forth to you as a committee for approval.
When we receive that document, though, we just receive the end result of that process.
That's right.
So I guess I, for one, would just advocate, for my own education, I guess, is to understand the evolution and any changes that were made. I'm sure that they're all, wise and sound, but when we go to make a vote on something as basic as the school calendar, I don't see that it could do us any harm to know what the original proposal looked like, what concerns were raised, what changes were made, and why. Just in the spirit of open communication and understanding before we take a vote on it. So I would ask respectfully that if it's possible to see a copy of what's currently being considered, and so we could look at that relative to wherever it ends up and have a better understanding of the needs and the desires that have gone into the document when we go to vote on it.
So probably, well, I guess I would just ask if it would work if I give you the original copy that went to the union membership and the copy that we bring to you after that process, so you can see the before and the after. And I can talk
Sure.
about why changes were or were not made.
Yeah, I think that would help, and if we could, I don't know what other question, maybe nothing else would come up. And I don't want to slow down the process of confirming the calendar for next year. It looks like we can move it out at least one meeting, so if we had that information at the beginning of it and then saw where it was at the end, we could ask questions about any changes that were made. That would be great.
We'll put it in the next packet, both of them.
Thank you.
Oh, and now, we are going to look at the Easthampton High School Program of Studies. Principal Burke is here. You have a copy in your packet or online to follow through, and there's also a copy on the screen so that Principal Burke can go through it and you can ask any questions and refer to any pages.
Good evening. I'm going to go through, and all the changes that were given to you were all highlighted initially in red. Anything that's changed was striked out. I'm going to go through the major changes. If you have anything that I missed that you have questions on, definitely feel free to ask. I'd be happy to answer any of the questions that you have. The first major change that is actually occurring is increasing PE credit requirements and health credit requirements. The reason that this is occurring is as we go through scheduling process, we've kind of gotten rid of most of our quarter classes. The only quarter classes, as you look through, that are left are PE and health. The PE health and wellness class that happens for freshmen. So what has happened is if they take those and they get 2 credits each on that, the credits didn't add up because initially you'd only get 4 credits. So if you took another health class, you'd automatically be at 6. And every other increment was going to be a 4-credit increment. So if you start with 2 PE classes, your increments are going to add up to 4, another 4, and another 4. So you're going to add up to 10. So that was one of the initial changes. The thing that we were able to do is there is a good amount of elective credits built into our schedule because over the course of time in a block schedule, you have 108 credits that you actually have to earn to get graduation with these requirements, but you can actually earn 132 credits. And there was 20 elective credits blocked into that 108 graduation requirements already. So those increase in 4, the 2 in PE and the 2 in health, are just coming out of the elective requirements to go into the 108. So it's not increasing the overall graduation from 108 to 112, it's staying at 108, but it's going to align now with the classes that we're now offering on our schedule. I did some more research and I looked into it. I looked at took out about 25 students and looked at seniors. About half of them met these requirements. And I looked at students across the board, so students who are taking AP and honor courses and students who are not. I looked within that too. most of the students are getting 16 or more credits between health and PE anyway. And that was about 75% of those students. So the majority of our students, even without these requirements, are already hitting them anyway.
Okay, before you leave that topic.
Yes.
So I'm trying to get my head around this to add it all up in my head. Because when I first looked at this, I felt really concerned. I felt very concerned that I hated to see us increasing PE requirements and health requirements, or especially PE, if it meant that a student would not be able to take a dual enrollment class, or wouldn't be able to have that work study opportunity, or wouldn't be able to have, because they have to take yet another gym class. So that was my initial concern when I read this. So I guess what I'm trying to figure out in my head is, I understand what you're saying, but I'm just trying to add it up in my head. So if a student takes gym now, each class is going to be worth 4 credits instead of...
They're going to be full semester classes, except they're all going to be full semester classes. The only quarter breakup is going to be their freshman PE wellness, which is looked at as one class anyway, because they take 1 quarter of PE for freshmen and 1 quarter of health.
And 2 of it goes to one category and 2 to the other.
Exactly.
Okay, so then in the future, so currently, are all gym classes quarter classes, or are all gym, or...
They were mixed. They were quarter and semester. But, we used to have, in social studies, we had some extra quarter classes. Forensics was a quarter class that moved up to, no, forensics was always a semester class. It was robotics that was a quarter class that moved up to a semester class.
some music?
So, some music. But typically, if you look at the schedule, students who took School Rock 1, School Rock 2, 2 quarter classes, they took them together. They didn't break them up, so that's becoming 1 class. So all these classes and for quarter classes and per scheduling has become harder to actually schedule in the quarter classes with the limited scheduling that we do have.
I completely understand that. I completely do. I just hope that, and I guess I can't know without analyzing examples myself, I just hope that, all right, like take my daughter, for instance, she'll be a senior next year. She'll be finished with her gym credits this year. I really am hoping she's going to be able to, she'd like to take 2 dual enrollment classes next year. I really hope that that change in that requirement doesn't mean that she's not going to be able to do that.
And what we'll do for the current juniors is we'll grandfather them into this year's so that it doesn't affect them.
Okay.
Which is the fair way to do it. The freshmen and the sophomores can easily achieve it, but we don't want the same issue. We don't want a junior this year going in and having an issue achieving that and having to take two gym classes to meet that requirement. That wouldn't be right.
Okay.
So we will definitely grandfather the junior class of this year, which would be our seniors next year.
Okay. And then
And this was something that was looked at through many lenses. I've had conversations with guidance. I've had conversations with my PE health department. I've had conversations with my team leaders. This is something we've gone round and around about trying to find the best solution to make this work for our high school. So we've looked through many different ways to make this work. And we found that this was probably the least impact on our students.
So overall, would the impact be essentially that every student is going to end up with 1 quarter more, 1 quarter of
Correct.
the year more of PE
Correct.
in their 4 years?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
But like I said, if you go back and, like I pulled out 25 students, at least 50% or more of those students are hitting those requirements anyway, and about 75% of those students got 16 or more PE or health credits. And keep in mind, a health credit could also be human anatomy. So you don't necessarily have to take within the health department, there are other ways to get health credits too. There's also, through our pre-practicum child course, there's also a health credit that you can get through that. So there's a variety of health classes that you can get.
Can I ask, sorry, also clarifying, is this reflecting a sort of a curricular investment in phys ed and health as something that is considered important as for well-roundedness of students, or is this sort of solving a technical numerical problem?
I would say it's probably resolving more to equate the credits because we're getting rid of the quarter classes. So it's more of a numerical problem to
Okay.
make it work within our.
So you could change the quarter problem as you know, change them to all semester classes, semester-based classes, and not change the requirements for graduation, correct?
They're gonna, no matter what though, they're gonna have to hit those requirements. Because no matter what, in order to get that, if they only had 8 PE classes and they got the 2 from their freshmen, they then took a PE class, that would bring them to 6. They would have to earn 2 more, it would bring them to 10 anyway. They wouldn't be able to earn just, without a quarter class, they wouldn't be able to earn just those 2 credits.
I see.
And you're saying that freshman class is because it's 2 credits for PE and then, like, it's a quarter
Right.
for PE and a quarter for health. That's why
And,
it's listed
and
at 2.
that class is important. That class has a lot of important things for freshmen as far as the health class. The wellness class brings in a lot of good things for freshmen to think about as they're moving forward through high school. It brings in the career cruising aspect that we've dealt with and that I know the school committee has wanted to actually implement. The PE class has brought in the hands-only CPR that the fire department has provided us. So there's a lot of good things. I mean, every student that comes through our high school, except our C-Tech students, is getting hands-only CPR through that PE class. So there's a lot of good things being offered in that PE and health class, and so we want to keep that there because I think it's a good thing to start our freshmen out, and it keeps them all together. We don't want our freshmen taking a modern PE class with seniors. That's not necessarily a great mix to start off with.
I just am wondering, did you all give consideration to, instead of increasing the credit requirements for those 2 categories, perhaps increasing credit requirements somewhere else and decreasing those by 2 each? Was that part of the process? Was that considered?
That particular was not considered. I did look at splitting PE and health, so it went 6 and 6, which would actually reduce the PE but increase the health. But like I said, there's a lot of different things to take into consideration as far as students in physical education. There's also, the state recommendations at offering PE and health classes on a yearly basis for students. So there's a lot of different things that we have to take in consideration when we're looking at the program of studies.
When the students currently take physical education, under this plan, how often, could you just quickly walk through what a typical
So for,
9th grader would do over the course of their 4 years on a semester by semester basis?
yeah, so they would take freshman PE, and then they would have to take 2 more PE classes over the course of
The remaining
their
3 years.
sophomore, junior, and senior year as a requirement. They would take their freshman wellness, and then they would have to take 1 more health class over the course of the 3 years after being a freshman.
Part of why I'm asking that is that the logic behind having the students engaged in physical education and studying health makes sense to me. It's the on the gas, off the gas component of it that, in the sense that they take it at certain periods of time and then they don't at other periods of time. And if we see it as vital to sort of their ongoing development in the way that studying English would be, that they're taking English all the time. And I recall in the past, and I'm not bringing this up for extended discussion tonight, but in looking at the logic of what you're saying from a curricular perspective, and what we have in terms of our student participation in interscholastic athletics, I wonder again about revisiting the question of how students who are participating on a interscholastic after school activity might help accomplish the curricular goal and actually fill in some of those gaps. Yeah, I apologize. I think I'm guilty of just thinking out loud here. It just. Do you see what I mean about it makes sense to have physical education all the time, but we don't, right? And yet, we do actually have students who are engaged in high school supervised athletic activity, which is physical education in another form, right? So, sorry, you don't have to respond to that. I apologize, I'm guilty of thinking out loud.
And the only other thing just to add to that is, like, people actually don't take English all year long. They have it half the year, usually. And math, they don't usually have it all year long and have it half the year.
Right.
That's
Right,
just the
right.
nature of our
Right, but in a block
system.
schedule, that's
Right,
equivalent
that's
to
the
a
block,
year-long,
right.
a year-long
Right.
course. So if you had, if we didn't have a block schedule, those courses would be full-year courses.
Right.
So there's advantages, obviously, and disadvantages either way that you go.
Right.
This is just a wording change in high school graduation policy. It's not a change in anything else. It's more to reflect what the state is requiring. I don't know if there's any questions on that. This was on page 7.
So we just, in other places you've highlighted in red, and I apologize if there was a comprehensive sheet that outlined all the changes that were in, I apologize, I
No,
looked
not a problem.
and wasn't able to find it. I don't know if anyone else found it. So I just sort of went through, but, so for example, when I see something such as what was on page 9, that simply means we're just taking that out.
Correct. Whatever's crossed out.
Okay, got it.
So this right here, and this is on page 13.
Right.
This is the college and career readiness for juniors. This was being taught through the health department. Since we've reduced our staff, we lost a PE teacher several years back. Our health teacher has taken up more roles in PE, and this class really hasn't been able to run. And as we discussed last year, we have started to, we increased our college, our career readiness as far as bringing in career cruising. We're implementing that program. Right now, our guidance department is working on the curriculum and figuring out how we can implement that more into our English, our math, and our health department. So with what we currently have, this class hasn't really been offered, and we're trying to implement the college and career readiness into our actual content areas. I was just actually in the 11th grade English class where guidance actually went in, reviewed PSATs, reviewed the PSATs with the students, showed them how to actually access it through the College Board website, actually showed them how to link it to Khan Academy, which actually now links their scores to Khan Academy and helps them study for the SAT tests. So our guidance department is already on the way of actually trying to help and work through this, and our English department is opening their doors for them too. So we're trying to implement this in other ways, and we're constantly looking at more ways that we can implement college and career readiness into content area classes.
So you said that guidance was just doing this with the English classes now?
11th grade English classes, yes.
Now, what if some 11th graders don't have English right now?
That's why they're doing it now, because it will continue into next semester.
So they'll start right
Yes.
after the changes
Yeah,
and
so
do the
they'll
same
hit
thing?
all the 11th graders, yes. Yeah. And, one of the other things we were able to do this year too with the after-school grant that came in that's run by HEC is we actually have Mr. Demento is doing resume writing, which has been offered. So we're really trying to utilize whatever we have to bring more college and career readiness to our students.
Is the college essay a formal part of the grade 12 English program?
Currently, it's not, no.
So
But we're-
usually, oh, sorry.
But we're definitely, that's one of the things we're definitely looking at, trying to talk to our content area teachers and figuring out what we can bring in. And the new program that we paid for this year, our guidance department, part of actually their PD and their inquiry-based study is looking and trying to find out different courses that are offered through that program to see what can be implemented in our school.
Right.
So we're really in the process of trying to figure out how to best utilize the program.
I guess my only thought about the information that's described here in just the course description that's here is valuable for students and families to know, particularly given all of the discussion about the expense of college right now. And I guess my interest here is that for students who are not planning on immediately entering into their careers post-high school, but who are either committed to college or who are considering the choice either way, is that the mechanism that replaces a course like this be clearly outlined. And I know that there are open houses and other informal ways that people get access to the information, but it's nice to have information like this printed in our school literature. Is it possible, Nancy, that while we take out this course, pending approval, that some of the key language here that I think we would want everyone to know, whatever their choices are, better to make the choice with information than without it? Can we put some of this information in somewhere else, or is it already in somewhere else? And what I'm asking for is already accomplished in other ways.
So I think what I'm hearing you say is it somewhere else in this document? But if not, could we put it maybe in some of the first pages or find a place in the document to put this kind of information? Is that what I'm hearing you say, Peter?
Right. I just think that in this, both for the students that we currently serve and for the students that we hope to continue to serve, students coming out of Whitebrook and students in this, the reality of the competitive age that we're in, new families move into town. I think that they would like to see this statement as something that we recognize, something that we promote, still respecting the decision that each family makes and each graduate makes about what they want to do after high school. This information, there's just, right now, there's an extraordinarily emphasis on the expense of college, and that's true. I don't know of any alternate facts that say that it's not, but there is still evidence to suggest that if you just want to look at it through an economic lens, that college has a long-term economic benefit to those who choose to go, and that we communicate that clearly, and that we communicate that we're committed to supporting that choice.
Peter, can I ask you, it sounds like what you're asking is just the first few lines, because the rest of it is a description of the actual course and the
Right.
requirements of the course. So
Yes, I think that's exactly what I mean, because
Okay.
it sounds like from what
first three lines should just
Principal
be
Burke has
summary.
said, that they're actively seeking ways
Okay.
to implement the other parts of the course process. Right, in a sense, the opening 2 or 3 lines here is really a description of the reason why you'd want to take this.
Correct.
And then it describes some of the things that you're going to go through.
And the requirement.
Right.
And
what
I think we
that's-
could probably find a place to put this in at the beginning of the document, probably within the guidance section.
Right, and I think it's good for us to look at this right before the budget, because again, we know that that the decisions families make about where they want to send their children for high school education is influenced by by what's on offer, and we want to communicate clearly that while we're taking this course out, we're putting in either statements or practices in other places that will assure that our students still get the benefit of what this course would have offered.
Yeah, I definitely think we can add that in somewhere else.
Thank you.
We did not have any changes through English, so we can go through the English department.
We did this stuff. See, that's the key.
The other reflections, I'm on page 24 now, through the health PE, basically reflect the increase in credits and the change in quarter classes. So when you look at bodyworks and low impact fitness, it's become low impact physical education. Those changes are reflective because they're no longer quarter classes. So bodyworks is, some of these classes have been kind of melded together to make full classes. Hot Topics for Teen is going to be moved into a 4-credit class. And low impact is going to be low impact physical education.
And again, just as a reminder, a 4-credit class is a class that is essentially a full class over the course of a semester.
Correct.
Right? And the meeting lengths vary a little bit by day, but basically each
No,
day.
each class, it's an 84-minute.
It's all 84.
84-minute block.
Right, I'm sorry, I was thinking about lunch. When I visited most recently, it was wrapped around lunch, and that's why it was a different sequence of time. Thanks.
This wasn't highlighted in red. The advanced placement statistics, our statistics teacher feels that pre-calculus was kind of setting the bar high for actually what.
What page is that on, Kevin?
Sorry.
36?
Yeah.
36, thank you. Pre-calculus was setting the bar high for what students actually needed for AP stats, and feels that as long as they have a Algebra 2 requirement, that they can actually fulfill the AP stats requirement, which basically allows more students an opportunity to take an AP stats class. And actually, it opens it up to juniors and seniors instead of, if you have to take pre-calculus, it makes it harder to take it in your junior year, which could diversify when you're taking your AP classes, where you take an AP stats class in your junior year and not as many AP classes in your senior year. So.
Can I just mention something? I guess, we recently heard about how many students at the high school are taking AP classes, which I think is fantastic. And I remember last year when we went through the program study, I mentioned this, and now it's bothering me again, so obviously it's a thing that I'm stuck on. The statement students are required to take and pay for the AP statistics exam, every time I read it, it catches for me, because it seems like one of those places where there's this intrusion of these privatized profit-making mechanisms into public school. And I know there's a lot of pressure at this point for students who are college-bound to take a lot of AP courses, not only because they're really educationally beneficial, but also because there's that competitive need to have those on your resume when you apply. And I know I asked you before about the what supports were in place for families who might not be able to afford these AP exams, and I just wanted to check about the status of those things, and then also just ask if it makes sense to have somewhere in the program of study a statement of if it was a hardship on your family, contact this person or something. I just would hate for families to read this and count themselves out of the possibility because it looks like something that's expensive.
So, if you qualify under free and reduce lunch, then you get a reduction in the AP test. In the past, that has equated to about, I think, $13 for the test. This year, there is an issue with the reduction in cost because the federal government is reducing what they are supplying to states, which does look like that is going to be an increased cost, which is something actually I just sent an email out to both the superintendent and our grants manager to see if we can address that issue. So that is a current concern, but I don't know if that's something that is going to stay the way that it's supposed to stay. Right now there is a way to reduce some of that cost to these families. We do have a AP account that does generate money over time, so we can subsidize it, but that won't last over an extended period of time. So we can go that route. The other thing we've done over the past is Ms. Wilson, who is actually our AP coordinator, does go around and talk to the teachers, talks to the students, lets them know what the fees are. And then any student that has any issue or family has issue paying is definitely asked to come talk with either the teacher or Ms. Wilson. We have done payment plans in the past, and we have always worked with students to ensure that it did not become a financial strain on their family, because that's not the intent here. The intent of having students take the test is to make the overall class meaningful for every student that's in there, and to set those high expectations for the test. And that's why we set that expectation. We don't set that expectation to put hardship on our families.
Right.
Do you know what the cost is now?
The cost went up $1 to, I think, is it 93 to 93
Per test?
per test, and I believe, I think currently right now for free and reduced, was it 53?
It's 57 is what they're projecting
But-
without the federal.
It went from 13 to 57 in
Yeah.
1 year.
Yeah, because of the lack of funding.
That highlights what you were mentioning earlier about the importance of people asking their senators to ask questions of President Trump's nominee for Secretary of Education, because certainly making tests like the AP test, which are increasingly not optional, but vital for students who want to compete for admission in colleges and universities, making it more financially difficult is sort of another attack on those least able to pay in our society, and I think that just heightens what you were saying before about someone should pose the question to the secretary designate. You know, what is your policy plan to address the need? Because students have to take AP courses. Increasingly, the students are asked to take more and more AP courses.
Kevin, that might be something to, as we see how this turns out, to think about in our budgeting process this year as well.
And also, my question too is how forthcoming are students to ask for the support, or is it kind of like a stigma?
Well, it becomes forthcoming because we set due dates on when it's due, so students who have not paid, we then have conversations.
Okay.
And we don't have conversations out in the general open, we call students down to the office. It
Right,
becomes
but
a process, so, yeah, it's not something we do. We provide the information to them as a whole in a class, but when we talk about actually collecting funds, we bring them down to office on an individual basis and talk to them, and if it becomes an issue, we'll talk to the parents directly. You know, the good thing is most of the students who are taking AP classes are 11th and 12th graders. There is a 10th grade history class that is taking it, so we are dealing with, you know, and some older students who are capable of dealing with these issues, but we also do contact parents, so.
What I thought Casey was asking was, and maybe I'm wrong, how forthcoming are kids when they want to sign up? In other words, if I didn't have the money, if I was worried about taking the exam and worried that my family can't pay it, I may not even sign up for it or talk to anybody about it because I assume that I'm shut out. So, I mean, is that kind of where you were going?
Part of
Casey?
it too. I think it.
You know, so that was our question, you know, is there a way that students are approached ahead of time when they're thinking about the next year to talk
Right.
about, you know, is this something that would be possible for
Right,
you?
do you think it's a
and if
deterrent?
not?
Is it a deterrent for the student to not take the class?
I honestly
Have
think
you
students
seen
have
that that's?
conversations with the teachers when they're setting their schedules. And if a student who would be eligible to take an AP class doesn't, the teacher that they have now is going to say something and say, why aren't you going to take that AP class? We would like you to take that AP class. They have a conversation when the schedules are being set and courses are being decided.
So the past history is it hasn't been a deterrent of a student not taking the class because, like what you're saying, they know ahead that they might not be able to afford the
And the
testing.
guidance counselor would also
Yeah,
have that,
so,
have some information and can guide.
right.
And I think because of the past cost of the free and reduced, also students are aware of that, and the process that we do go through, that it's not, you know, students aren't on their own to apply for courses. We also have teachers talk to their classes about what AP classes are about, what the expectations are. So if you're in English 10, the English 10 teachers should be talking to those classes saying, hey, you know, this is what you need to do in order to be in English 11 AP. Here are the requirements, here are the expectations. So we've set that expectation to our teachers, and we hope that those things are occurring in the classroom. I think our numbers also show for how many students we do have taking AP classes, that it hasn't been a deterrent. Now, whether the changes in federal funding change that, I don't know, and I guess that's something we would have to either address through our budget process or see if we have a decrease in numbers because of the increase of costs.
And that was the main focus of the MIMSI grant program that we were involved in that enabled us to put all of these AP courses into our high school. It was tremendous financial support, and their goal was to increase the numbers of students who had access to AP courses. So students who in the past might not have felt that they were able to take an AP course, weren't ready to take an AP course. There were all kinds of supports, not only financial but academic, to enable a greater number of students to take AP courses, and that's what we want to see continue at our high school. So, good points, and we need to talk more about this.
So it's increased the enrollment in these classes.
Yes, it has.
Yeah.
It increased it dramatically.
And it's the same thing where there's a need. I mean, we have so many different donation accounts and so many different things and fundraisers and whatever. Sometimes people just know where the specific need is. And, tonight was one of the nights we didn't have any gifts, but there's so many different things. So part of the whole scenario. But the good news is it hasn't been a deterrent, and it has increased the enrollment,
Right.
which is the purpose.
With the new costs, we do need to take a new
Right.
look at it.
Absolutely.
If in fact that happens.
Mhm.
So I'm going to move on to page 45. We're in the social studies area of the program of studies. If you look up here, they're getting, they wanted to take legal studies and advanced placement, AP US government politics, out of the social studies requirement, but bring in a class called We the People. And I'll explain to you what the social studies department reasoning is behind that. If you look at legal studies and what is required as far as the constitutional law and society, a lot of that is going to be brought into and covered under the We the People class. So they felt that with that class being, We the People class being brought in, that they didn't need a legal studies class in there. And what they would like to do in the future possibly actually is bring in an economics class, which would diversify what's being offered in social studies. They weren't looking at bringing that in this year, but that's something they're looking at in the future, which would be another elective, which would be great. The reason they want to take out an AP class for the U.S. government and politics and put in the We the People, the We the People is a great opportunity for our students to actually go out and go to Boston and debate. So by not making this an AP class, this is now offered to 11th and 12th graders, and more students have the opportunity to now take this class. So it is, as all the social studies classes, they've combined their academic and honors. They started that as of this year, which has worked out great. Our social studies department is a very strong department, and they've done a great job as far as making sure they're hitting academic and honors levels within those classes. I don't know if there's any questions about that, but
So is essentially the same material that was covered in the AP US government class
Correct.
going to be covered in We the People?
yes, not the exact same amount, but I mean, there's a lot of crossover between the U.S. government class, the legal studies class, and what's going to be covered in We the People.
That's great.
So there's a small note there on the fourth line up from the bottom, just between competition and in order. It may just be a dot on my computer screen, but it looks like it goes up and down. Pull that out between competition and in before we send this out electronically or to be printed.
Where are you
Where
looking
is
at?
he? Where are you, Peter?
Page 48, 4 lines up from the bottom in the description of the We the People course,
Oh, yeah.
right?
yeah.
There's a little
Oh
yeah.
And I would speak in.
Thank you.
I think this change
Yeah.
makes sense for all the reasons that Principal Burke has outlined. I do think it's important to note that this, in a way, going back to Marissa's concern, This course provides a more authentic assessment than the AP US government course does. I can speak from experience with that. I can speak from experience having observed the teaching of this at Easthampton High School. And Kelly Brown, who will be a judge this Saturday statewide and is also a mentor in the program, has been tapped by the Center for Civic Education to do professional development work with them. So I think that this will be a better offering in a number of ways. We obviously will still have to find the funding to pay for getting the folks to Boston, and I would hope getting them to Washington, D.C. should they win again, as they did as recently as I think it was the spring of 2012. If you're a senior now in college, right? Because I was just visiting with an alum. And they've done terrific in this program. I think the first year they came in fourth. I know that last year they came in second. That the year before that was third. So this is a place where all of the success in the We the People program used to be sort of east of Worcester. Through Kelly's efforts, it's really shifted the balance of sort of the study of civic education in the Commonwealth. You can't get better teaching around this course at any of the charter schools or any of the other high schools that you might choose to choice out to. They can show up anytime they want. Competition is judged by other people. They don't and they won't, because they'll find that they won't be able to match what happens here with our students. And it's an open enrollment class, and many of the schools that participate in this close the enrollment and sort of cherry pick the very best of their students to participate in it. So I think it's a terrific offering. I think this is a better way to do it than trying to piggyback it within the AP US government class. And it's another unique offering that we provide, and the work that they do is both extraordinarily challenging and incredibly important. These are the kind of folks who would ask Betsy DeVos the tough questions, and I'm confident that the past graduates of this program are among the most engaged citizens that we have in the community.
And I just want to point this out because I don't want it to be an oversight, but students, and it says it in here, students will be required to participate in the competition to fulfill the course. And that's actually a requirement from the We the People program.
Right.
So that's something we have to include in there.
Is this a nationwide program, or is this just a...
It ultimately ends up being nationwide, yes.
Cool. That's neat.
Students across the country. It is the single most successful civic education initiative in the history of the country. It's been going on since the bicentennial of the Constitution in 1987, and it's an extraordinary opportunity for the kids. They, long after they graduate, they won't remember what they got for a score in AP US government. They'll remember their trip to the Kennedy Institute, and they'll remember their trip to Washington, D.C. These folks still do. As I say, I was just one of the alums of the class that I believe, after winning in the state, finished 23rd in the nation, and there were actually 54 schools there that year because they invite a number of wildcard schools. It was one of the smallest schools that we went. That year we sent 10 students, if I remember correctly. I traveled with the team to D.C., and it was just incredible, the work that they did. And the teams that have participated since then have also been outstanding. It's really cool. If any of you are looking for an excuse to go to Boston this Saturday morning, I would invite you to the Kennedy Institute to see the high schools that are participating this year. You'll get a taste of what it's about, and it's pretty engaging.
Do you want to just explain a minute, like, about the congressional hearings and
Yeah,
the
what happens in the course is that the course is divided into 6 curricular units, and each unit, the first unit talks about the history and the philosophy, the second unit talks about the creation of the Constitution, the third talks about subsequent developments, and so on all the way up to the 6th unit, which talks about the challenges of constitutional democracy in the 21st century. The students are divided into 6 teams of anywhere from 3 to 5 students, and they're given 3 substantive questions regarding this. For example, this year, one of the questions is that the students are asked to address Woodrow Wilson's presidency, and in the space of 4 minutes, they have to present their coherent answer explaining his program on 14 points, collective security and trade policy. They then need to also address his views on American identity, and finish with a discussion about the experience of Americans in terms of civil liberties during World War I. Clearly, the question is designed to be a contrast with our incoming, or now President Trump. They have to do that all in a 4-minute presentation, and they set aside all of their notes, and a panel of experts ask them follow-up questions for 6 to 11 minutes. So they really have to know their stuff. They can't just create a script. I know that Vice Principal Welson knows this well. Her son competed in this program, and Easthampton's the place to go if you want to get this stuff. You got to come out here, this side of the 495 Beltway to have it really done right. And these kids, it's incredible because they have to do 3 questions like that. They don't know what they're going to be asked. They do 1 question in the morning. They do another question in the afternoon, and at the end of the day, they're exhausted and elated, and invariably they come away saying that they would be happy to do it again because it went better than they thought. They all pray for snow on Friday night, and on Saturday when they get up at dark 30 and drive in, they do an incredible job. It's really one of the reasons after what we may all be worried about some aspect of American politics today. I'm convinced that the more students that Easthampton can have exposed to this program, the better off we'll be in the long run. Regardless, Republican, Democrat, Green, Libertarian, whatever party they go into, they'll be better citizens because they'll understand how the system works and why it is a constitutional, that means a limited system of government.
And what Peter is talking about also plays into why some of the changes was made. The U.S. government class was an every other year class. This is going to be a every year offered class, which is part of the reason for this change also. So students will have an opportunity to do this every year. Currently, this class is not running this year. I know Kelly Brown has been helping out at Williston to
She has.
help that program
It's a
out,
double
which is
benefit.
great.
We don't have to face Easthampton High School, and we
And I
get
know
great
that
mentoring from the best at
I know that
Easthampton
when
High
it's
School.
running here, Peter comes and helps our students out too. So
It's great fun.
It truly is a remarkable program, remarkable students and a remarkable teacher. We're so very proud.
I was amazed watching, I went to the congressional hearings one year, and it was incredible
It is.
to watch those students debate and answer those questions in front of the panel of intimidating judges that files into the room each time.
Well, Kelly will be a
It's
judge this
amazing.
weekend, so I hope she's not too intimidating.
Intimidating, right. I have one little technical suggestion.
Yes.
When you just list courses offered, maybe you should put the full title, like we all know what We the People is, but maybe it would be great to put the Citizen and the Constitution, just for families that might not be familiar with what that means as
Yep.
students coming up through the ranks.
certainly. After that, really, there's no other major changes. There were some editing changes through the program, but no major changes.
So the structural design is just a change. It's not that it's a new course. It's just an additional component of the description, right, on page 64? Is that right? Or am I? Because we have that little.
Yeah, that's
That's just an additional description.
that's actually so. I'm
You
just
might
gonna
be-
get to
there
it.
you go.
Yeah,
There
so-
you go. Exactly.
So we brought back our design tech and engineering, which is great because we're utilizing our fabrication lab, which has been a great thing, and it's going the direction I think that it was initially intended to go. And the teacher who we have in there is a young teacher who's really looking for new things to bring in. So he actually went to a course that dealt with solar engineer and utilization of energy and actually analyzing heat loss in homes and structures using Google to actually do it. So he's implementing that into the course, which is part of why that was added into that, which I think is a great addition to what they're learning.
Well, and it shows that, that's the advantage to building the high school in the way that the next school we built, where it has the flexibility to restore and take full advantage of those kinds of spaces. That's a terrific offering. I'll confess that part of why I wanted you to go over is just so that people hear.
Thank you for pointing it out.
Again, it's the kind of thing that you just see the kids lining up to of all their understanding of spatial, and it involves the use of so many different skills. I mean, I know it's all these classes get listed in one department, but in many ways, you got to have an artist's imagination and, mathematical concepts. It's a terrific offering.
So, Mr. Burke, I remember, this is a real trivial little thing, but I remember when I was looking through this the other day, I had the same thought that I had a year ago about, I can't find it now, but we have like business courses and technology courses in the same, listed under kind of a technology heading. And I wondered, for clarity, if we would consider like having a technology section and a business section, like not combining the two under one category?
Yeah, actually, one of the things, and looking at this this year, I've kind of looked at is I think maybe how some of this is organized could be more user-friendly, even just how some of the courses are listed under some of the other content areas too. And I think that's something I want to go back to my team leaders and go back to them and to their departments and say, you know, is there a way that we can better organize the program of studies to make it more user-friendly for, you know, it's one thing for someone, you know, a teacher or a principal or anyone in our school to look at it, we really understand what's going on, but for
Right.
teachers, especially, you know, our new students that are coming in from 8th to 9th grade, this is a big document to look at.
Right, to
And
utilize
there-
it, find things
There
easily.
is a lot of guidance that goes along, but still, it's a lot to take in all at once. So I do think there's some things we can do to organize it, but I think I'm going to look at that for next year to figure out what we can do to make this a more user-friendly document.
Okay, because it just struck me that way. It looked like we have a significant number of business classes have been added, and the technology class, I just think of them, while sometimes related, that really separate categories and could benefit from being listed separately. Because if I were looking for a business course, I wouldn't look under technology for it, you know, or vice versa.
Where on the website, I'm sorry, Superintendent Crawford, where on the website is the course of studies booklet? I know that we have the student handbook.
The program of studies is actually listed on the Easthampton High School website.
So I go
On
in
the
there,
on the left-hand side, there are a few black tabs with white writing.
Gotcha.
Did you find it?
Our
Yeah,
handbooks, our
I
program
can.
of studies,
Right.
our school
Great,
report
thank you.
card, school profile.
One other thing that I wanted to throw out, well, you're finished covering this, correct?
I am, yes.
Okay. One other thing I just wanted to throw out, I've had people suggest to me over the years, and I think I might have mentioned it last year. I think we maybe have had a conversation about it. I'm not sure. People suggesting that personal finance be a requirement for all students. The topics covered in personal finance being critical to daily life and adult life and being responsible and independent and all those sorts of things. And I've had a number of people over the years say to me, gee, you know, that really ought to be a required course. So I just toss that out for consideration.
You did talk about it.
Did I last
You-
year?
You did talk about it
Okay.
last year. A lot of our students do take personal finance. We have opened up some of the field trips that they do, which are some great field trips where students all our seniors have an opportunity to learn some of this, where they actually go through a day where they actually have to see if they have a particular income, all the costs that would be accrued through a normal life cycle that they would live, as far as can they survive and how can they survive with cars, houses, mortgage, insurance. It's a great field trip. Do you remember the name of that field trip? I don't remember the name of the field trip off the top of my head. Credit for Life, yes. So I think there's a lot of positive things. I think we also have to look at it from, you know, personal finance is utilized also by a lot of students that aren't going through, you know, taking an AP Calc class. So if you're a senior and you're going through and you got AP Calc and AP Chem, once again, we're looking at is there, if we already have 16 credits that are required in math, you have to take 4 math classes over the course of your 4 years. And there's, you know, you have to take Algebra 1, you have to take Geometry, those are MCAS preparations. You then have to take Algebra 2. That brings you into where do you go next? So I think, you know, personal finance is a great option, but if we require it, are we then moving our math requirements up to 20? It's kind of an idealism on where you want to go, and do you want to pigeonhole certain students where they have to take a personal finance class when they're taking AP Calculus, AP Chemistry, maybe AP Stats? becomes,
yeah,
it becomes
I
tough to meet
understand.
all those requirements.
I just wonder, like, sometimes should we consider, okay, what if we lower the physical education requirements? Like, take away one class of that and add personal finance and have those kinds of discussions, I don't know.
And the other thing to consider too is we are a small school, so when we start requiring more classes within it, our class sizes do increase. So something.
That's staffing problems,
Something to think about, and
challenges.
we're working hard to increase some of our math deficits in our school. And one of the things we've done is tried to decrease the math class sizes in some of the Algebra 1 and geometry classes, so that our teachers have more time with the students, which, smaller class sizes proven to increase test scores.
Right.
So those are all things to consider when we look at requiring
Right.
personal finance.
Right, I completely understand.
But I think opening it up to seniors and trying to provide those opportunities as much as we can in the high school is important.
And I want to say, in having a number of conversations with Principal Burke, this is a very complex task, and I think you've done an admirable job.
Thank you.
And each year, I see that you're looking at it with fresh eyes and thinking about how to do things differently, so
You're already
Fine.
thinking of next year.
applaud the work you've done.
Yeah,
Thank
we
you.
appreciate that,
Thanks.
yeah.
You want
Thank
to
you
teach
very much.
economics?
What?
Want to offer economics?
Next year, didn't you say
He
that that
did
was a
say that.
possibility for next year?
That is something
year
that
after.
my social studies department brought up, that they were thinking of
We
putting
heard
out
it.
there because they were taking away an elective, so they were thinking of bringing back economics. So that will be a conversation that occurs next year.
You have time, Peter?
Certainly have the interest.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Perfect timing for my battery.
Okay,
Yes,
moving
they are good.
on. Warrants and payroll.
Show warrants and payroll. Haha. I move to approve the school payroll dated 19 January 2017 in the amount of $486,693.67.
Second?
There's a motion, it's been seconded to approve the school payroll dated January 19th, 2017 in the amount of $486,693.67. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Motion to approve the accounts payable authorization for the payment dated 19 January 2017 in the amount of $185,738.22.
Second?
There's a motion, it's been seconded to approve the accounts payable authorization for payment dated January 19th, 2017 in the amount of $185,738.22. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Motion to approve the minutes. Hang on, sorry. Switch this up. I can go down with that. Motion to approve the minutes of, hang on, hold on. Oops.
January 10th.
Yeah, January 10th. Got it. So the January 10th, 2017 school committee meeting
In work
Second?
session.
and work session. Thank you.
Second?
There's been a motion to approve the minutes for January 10th, 2017. All those in favor? Motion passes. Thank you.
So we're going to move into,
We are not going to adjourn, but we're going to move into a work session immediately following this meeting into the conference room behind us. And we will be discussing at that work session the goals and objectives for 2017, potential donor recognition programs, and we will be talking about setting a date for the superintendent's mid-cycle review work session. If anyone would care to join us. Thank you very much, everyone.
so Kevin, can I ask you